everybody. This is Scott Love. I apologize for taking like 7 minutes to get on, but I had to reboot my computer. I have no idea why I had to do that. I'm going to talk on principles of ethical influence and persuasion. As a recruiter, you have three core competencies. The first one is to get other people to do what you want and thank you at the end of the process. The second one is to bounce back quickly from adversity, because our business is built on adversity. And the third is to build authentic relationships where other people see you as someone that is a trusted partner in their success. We're going to talk about the first one. The way I teach the business, I don't train people, I teach them. You train dogs, you train soldiers. You don't train people, you teach them. I think we do have to have some sort of training to learn how to respond without thinking. But I try to make sure that the people that I spend time with get a real understanding of what this business is all about, so that way they can solve their own problems without having to be mechanical about that. So the way I teach the business, I teach it based on what's called system thinking. If we look at our business as a system, then we can follow a formula, a paint-by-the-numbers approach, where there are some amazing, incredible people in our industry. And you know what? I just don't have that level of talent. I'm just a regular average person. But I can find out what they do and create a replicable system, so that way average people can get above average production just by following the system. And you know what? Persuasion and influence is the same thing. There's a reason why people are persuaded and influenced, and that's what we're going to share with you today. This is kind of the topic that I'm known for. Anytime I do a presentation, I'm going to cover the 6 different principles of ethical influence. So this may be a repeat for you. What I've learned, though, is that repetition is a real key to learning. If you've heard this before, stick around, because I don't know about you, but I usually have to hear things about 3 or 4 times before I finally get that. When I listen to sales tapes and motivational tapes, I hear new stuff when I listen to some of the old things that I've had, and I listen to them over and over and over again. And if you've ever heard my story, you know that I used to be a professional card-counting blackjack player. When I used to do a lot of keynote motivational speaking, I would go to Vegas a lot, because that's where a lot of the sales meetings were at that I would speak at. I used to do most of my speaking outside of the industry. I'd come and speak to different types of groups. And I don't like to gamble. I don't want to put money on the felt unless I know that I can have an advantage. So with the game of blackjack, I learned how to count cards. I had read several books on this. I got pretty good at that, which basically it's a system of math. And I contacted 2 of the guys that were on the MIT blackjack team. The guy just to the right of the silver cup, his name is Micah Ponte, and he was the character Fisher from the book. If you read the book, if you saw the movie, the character that he played didn't get a lot of time in that movie, but he was on the MIT blackjack team. And I contacted him and one of his business partners, and I said, listen, I'll consult to your company. You help me with my game, and we won't charge each other. So for about 1.5 years, they mentored me. This was like 6 years ago. They mentored me, and I was so good that I've been kicked out of casinos. I've been banned from some of them. I haven't played in a long time. I play poker because it's more of a fun game than a math game. And I got so good, I counted cards in 26 casinos just in Las Vegas, and I won most of the time that I played there just because I followed the system. And you know what? The math doesn't care whether the MIT blackjack team is doing it or I'm doing it. The math doesn't care. It's the system. When you understand the business and you understand probabilities, and this is the Barbary, what was called the Barbary Coast. It's I don't know the name of it now, but that was the first place I was ever asked to leave. The math doesn't care. Who's counting the cards? In terms of recruiting, you can be a mega producer or someone that just has a lot of burning desire. And if you learn to think the way that person thinks, if you develop the same work habits as that person, if you develop the right sort of verbiage and attitude, and you're as disciplined as that person, you're going to get the same results that that person is getting. All you have to do is follow a system. So in terms of influencing and getting people to do what we want, we have to ask ourselves, what's the expectation? What are the probabilities? Do I have positive expectation or negative expectation of that person doing what I ask of them? And we have to look at this specific person that we're talking to and ask ourselves, is there anything that we can do to give ourselves positive expectation? Can we do things a little bit differently? And that's what's called probability. What are the odds? If you get a percentage. And I always like to look at my deals or candidates. Like I've got a candidate right now that's kind of flaking out. I'm saying he's about a 30%. We've got about a 30% shot at getting him back in the process because he seems to have fallen off of my magical recruiting circus bus because his pride is keeping him from going forward on an opportunity. So I've got to find ways that I can increase the odds of him going forward. But as it stands right now, I'm giving him about a 30% shot at going forward. I'm finding backup candidates. So I like to look, when I'm dealing with people, what are the probabilities of them going forward, and what are those things, those variables that I can influence to increase those odds? In other words, can I stack the deck in my favor? I think the entire success model of recruiting can be boiled down into these four components, and this is a pie chart that I came up with. This is one of the first models that I ever created when I started training back in 2003. I created a model that shows what area gives you the most value as a recruiter. We can look at how you think, your attitude. During our coaching call for the coaching club today, I talked about my weekend I had with Tiger Woods. Saturday, I got invited to a private golf clinic with Tiger Woods, private meaning me and 100 other people, you know, and it was really neat to see Tiger up close and personal. He's promoting a club that he's designing that I got lucky enough to get a membership in. And by the way, if you guys ever come to Asheville, North Carolina, bring your clubs, call me, we'll go out, golf's on me. I play at the Cliffs of Walnut Cove. It's an amazing course, a signature course by Jack Nicklaus. And Tiger's talking, he spent about an hour talking about golf. And about 25% of what he was talking about, maybe even about 15%, were the tactics of golf, how he swings the club. He talked about his work habits, he talked about his strategy, but he spent most of the time talking with us about sports psychology. I'd say about half of your success, more than that, is based on how you think. Strategy, what direction you're going in. Are you talking with the right people? Are you spending time wisely with the right folks? Your work habits, how well do you do what you're supposed to do on an hour-by-hour basis consistently? And then finally, the tactics, what you actually do and what you actually say. What's interesting, if we look at the area that contributes the least to our success, it's the tactics. If Tiger Woods called your manager and said, I've never done recruiting, but it's always been a dream of mine, ever since I was a little boy, when my dad would make me go play golf, in the back of my mind I said, I want to get on the phone and make cold sales calls. I want to be a headhunter. If Tiger Woods talked to your manager and said, I want to be a recruiter, do you think your manager would hire Tiger Woods? Absolutely. Well, you don't have to pay him a draw. You know, you'd hope he'd be able to work commission only. In 12 months, do you think Tiger Woods would be one of the top producers in your system or in your office or in your network? Probably so. But who knows more about recruiting, you or Tiger Woods? Well, you do. Well, you've just proven to me that knowledge, tactical knowledge of the business, doesn't contribute as much to someone that thinks like a championship athlete. Someone that knows how to think at a higher level, that knows where they should spend time and has incredible work habits. All those things, which is really the core of what I teach on, especially to senior recruiters, that's going to get you what you want, more than memorizing your magical rebuttal number 34. So these are the variables in this model that I came up with. There's 6 different variables in our process. What you think about. And good grief, what is going on with my computer today? Come on. Give me a break. Okay, I'm gonna bring, I don't think my computer likes me today, but that's okay. That's all right. Look at this. I don't know why it's not showing up, but I'm just going to show you this, okay? I'm going to just expand this out. The top variable is what you think. The second one is what you do, what you say, your habits, other people's thoughts and other people's actions. If you can't see those, that's what those say. And there's a red line in between those. When I go to speak at an office, I'll draw these on the board and I'll say, how many of these do you have control over? Well, the top 4. So you're all agreeing with me that you have control over what you think about, what you do, what you say, and how well you do it. Is that correct? Yes. On a scale of 0 to 100% control, how much control do you have over what you think about, what you do, and what you say, and your habits? 100%. Remember, this one guy said, well, I've got 75%. I said, 75%? What's in that other 25%? He says, the devil made me do it. I'm like, okay, all right, I guess that's all right. Look at the bottom, too. Other people's thoughts and other people's actions. My last recruiting call was this morning, 11 o'clock, 11:30. Talked to a candidate, happy where he's at. Next, made another call. Guy said, I might be interested. I can't talk. I'm walking out the door. I've got a conference call. I'm gone for the week. Call me next Monday. Sounds great. I can't make them do anything, can I? I'm charged with the responsibility of getting them to consider making making a change and to take action on that. I had to get them to do two things, to think that there is something better out there and to take action on that. How much control do I have over that? I don't have any control. Do you think you can control the people? Have a kid. And that's why when I started training in the business, I'm going to kind of cycle through these other slides. And I wanted to show you my really cool animation, but I guess it's just not going to work. So I remember when I started thinking about the business, I started thinking, this phrase that I grew up with called candidate control. I remember having these candidates. I had 3 candidates take counteroffers on a Wednesday, all in one day. And at the end of the day, this is in 1995, 96. Remember, at the end of the day, I said, those darn candidates, I didn't say that, but you get the point. I said, those darn candidates, I guess they're just going to do what's in their own best interest. At the end of the day, it's every man for himself, isn't it? These candidates are so selfish. That's what I was saying about these guys. And I thought, wait a minute, a little light bulb went on. If they're going to do what they're going to do anyways, why don't I just find out what they really want and use that energy to drive the whole deal? And in my early days of recruiting, I read this book when I was moving to Arizona from North Carolina. We moved to Arizona and then came back to North Carolina in 2003. But I remember reading this book, and this guy, Robert Cialdini, he's actually a professor of psychology at Arizona State University. As I was getting involved in speaking, his wife owned a speakers bureau, and they became really good friends of mine. I was able to get him booked at NAPS in 1998, a long time ago, in Florida, because his field of expertise is getting other people to do what we want them to do. But here's the catch. It has to be in their best interest. One of the guys today and we just finished our coaching club call. He's been a member for about a month. He's closed 3 deals. He's been in the business 90 days and said that the biggest thing he got from learning and studying in the business so far in his education was, it's not about us. It's about the client and the candidate. That true wealth is a representation of how many lives that you positively influence. When we take our eyes off of the commission and focus it on the contribution, you're going to make more money that way. It just has to work that way. That's my own style of teaching the business, and I'm not the teacher for everybody. There are some groups I know I'm just not going to be invited to speak at, because I really believe that wealth is representation of value first and not sales tactics or closing techniques. It's about having a heartfelt belief that you can provide positive change for other people. The key is, how do we get them to see this? Tactically, how do we do this? So in his book, and you can go get this book for probably less than $20 online. His website is called influenceatwork.com. Bob Cialdini studied why people say yes and said that there's a science and there's a predictive element to it, and we can get other people to do what we want by following that formula. But like I said, there has to be a benefit for them first. And he said there's 2 reasons why this works. It's either our genetic makeup, the way we're wired, or our social conditioning. That there are these rules in society that aren't written down anywhere, that if we don't follow the rule, society says we're a jerk and we're cast out in some way. So if I do something for you, you have to say thank you, because mama told you. You have to say thank you. And then I say, you're welcome. Those are the rules that we follow. It's that simple. And I'm going to go through 6 of these, and I'm going to give you specific examples of how you can use these today on your desk, and you will see candidates respond more eagerly to you. You will see clients respect you more when you use these. Think of it like this. You remember the movie The Karate Kid? What's the one thing you remember from The Karate Kid? Wax on, wax off. Why is it that everybody says that? Well, because we were thinking he was going to teach him martial arts. And remember, he said, come on, Mr. Miyagi, when are you going to teach me martial arts? And he says, do wax on, wax off. And he starts throwing punches at his chest. And he's doing wax on, wax off, and he's blocking him. And he didn't know it, but he had mastered the fundamentals of martial arts without being bogged down in the tactics and the fancy moves. That's what this business is all about, having a real understanding of human behavior and how you can move people forward in a way that benefits them. And that's what it's all about. When you do it, man, it's so exciting. It's such a rush. So what are these different principles? Let me go over these for you. And this is real simple stuff, folks. There's not going to be a lot of text on here. But the first one is the contrast principle. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see these buildings? Well, one's old, one's new. You didn't say one is made of glass and one is brick. You didn't say one's taller, one's closer, one's further away. The immediate, most evident difference was what you saw. Imagine we have 3 buckets of water. The bucket in the middle is room temperature. The bucket on the right is hot. The bucket on the left is cold. You put your right hand in the hot bucket, left hand in the cold bucket. Hold them down, put them in the one that's room temperature. The hand that was in the hot bucket feels cool. The hand that was in the cold water feels warm. It's the same temperature. I remember my son, who's 9 years old now, when he was a little guy, see now, for him to get his money, he has to earn it. He has to earn it. If he wants a toy, we negotiate projects that he'll do around the house to earn money. If he goes on a trip with me, he'll carry my bag. He gets $1 when he carries it from one gate to the other. No handouts. You got to earn it, man. You're not, an entrepreneur. And when we would go to Toys R Us, I would give him a $5 budget for the toy trip, and never more. If you want to get a $10 toy, you have to be willing to go 2 weeks without a toy. You can do that, but you have to make wise decisions and buy toys that have a high toy value. And I remember that we're leaving to go to Toys R Us, and as we're leaving, he knows the toy budget's $5. He says, Daddy, why do we have a toy budget today of $150? And I said, no way. And he said, well, how about $15? And I said, okay, $15. And I said, wait a minute. I didn't know if I should be upset or proud. But he tripled his toy profit for the day, and it didn't cost him anything, and he did it with a snap of a finger by contrasting one thing with something else. We can use this in negotiating. We can use this when we convey an opportunity to a candidate. Contrast opportunity A, opportunity B with your client's opportunity. Or contrast their current situation. If their firm has had layoffs, your client has, contrast that with that. I remember when I used to sell stuff door to door. I was a Boy Scout, and I'd sell all these fundraising things for the band and all this stuff. And I remember knocking on the neighbors' doors. Hi, Scotty, what do you have for us today? Well, Mrs. Jones, we have a Scout Jamboree this weekend. And I wanted to see if you'd be willing to chaperone 20 Boy Scouts all day Saturday and all day Sunday. Are you interested? And they'd say no, and I'd say, well, I'm selling tickets. They're only $2 each. Would you be willing to buy 3 of them? They'd say, sure. It just wasn't as bad. I remember I had a client that gave me a real difficult retained search, and I found the ideal, perfect candidate. First candidate of the search. The guy was amazing. I was so excited to send him to the client. I was expecting my client to giggle because of how good this guy was. And my client said, he looks okay. How do you think I could have gotten my client to see how good this candidate was? Aha, now you got it. That's why your manager always says, send 3 candidates over at the same time. Because that star candidate, the A player that my candidate was, he didn't look that good by himself. But if I send in a B player, maybe a C+ player or a B- player, they have to fit the specs, the search. Otherwise, we can't send them over. They would make my client look that good. See, this is stuff that you guys have done already, and you know that it works. But now that you understand that there's a system behind it, you're going to be much more cognizant of that and much more intentional, and you can use this as a tool. These are tools in your tool belt on how you can gain compliance with other folks, because influence is what our business is all about. Second one is reciprocity. Mama always said, if someone does a favor for you, you have to return the favor, okay? So you remember when you're in your 20s, there's a couple that across the street from us, we live in a townhouse, and I noticed they had a little baby and they moved out, and all their friends came to help them move this past weekend. And when you're in your 20s and you move, you don't hire movers, you have friends, and you don't pay your friends. They come over, they help you move, and you have pizza and beer when you're done, and the unwritten rule is that when it's their turn to move and they call you, what's the deal? You have to do it. If you don't, if they call you, they help you move. 2 weeks later, they're moving, they call you, hey, we're moving, can you help us out? You say, you know, I really don't feel comfortable with that. What's going to happen? You're not going to be their friend anymore. You're going to be a jerk. Society is going to kick you out. That's the rule. How do we use this in our business? 2 ways, clients and candidates. With clients, this is a very good way that you can negotiate. If you've ever heard, if you remember the coaching club, go in and listen to the negotiating webinar that I did, and you can download that in the webinar archive. But this is one of the key principles of negotiating. If you ever have to make a concession, you have the right to ask for something back. There was another client in Australia that I'm consulting with. Every week we do a Skype conference with them and their team. Just like the same problems over there that we have up here. Same thing, same business. And they had a deal with the client, wanted to negotiate a fee, and really through certain circumstances they had to, but they were able to come back. And I said, do this, say, okay, we'll make this concession, but this is what we'd like to ask of you. We'd like to have a visit with you and meet some other key decision makers within your firm and take you all out to lunch and get to know all the other partners. Secondly, if you like how we do business, we'd like to have a nice testimonial letter if you like how we do business. And then third, we'd like for you to be responsive. Anytime we leave a message, we'd like to get a call back that day or first thing next business day, and then quick, decisive decisions after we present candidates to you. If you can do those 3 things, then we will make this concession on our fee. And of course, the client eagerly did, because the client's thinking, wow, that's all I have to do. Now look at that. That's called high-value, low-cost concession. What's the value for the recruiter? It's huge. A day with a client, meeting other relationships that can give more business, getting a letter, and getting a quick responsive client? Come on. That's worth tons of money, but it doesn't cost the client anything. So that's what I'm talking about. That's how these principles affect everything we do, and it's right underneath your nose. And now you know that it's a rule, it's a system. You're going to be able to use that the same way all systems work, deliberately and intentionally. Let's talk about how we use this with candidates. This happened today. I was talking to a candidate, and he said he's happy, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't turn him around, blah, blah, blah. I said, Joe, I'd love to keep in touch with you. As soon as we're done, I'm going to email you my contact info. Anytime you want to talk about your career, I want you to call me. If you ever get a raise or a bonus and you want to see how that compares to other people within the city, let me know, because I keep track of what everybody makes, and I'd be glad to be a resource for you, even if you want to stay with your firm. And he said, wow, thanks. I said, my pleasure. By the way, this is what I'm looking for. Who do you know? And I got a referral from that. He didn't know me. If I had said, who you know, that fits his profile, right after he told me, no, I'm happy where I'm at, does he have an incentive to give me anything? No, he doesn't. But because I build that incentive in, it's artificial. I intentionally insert, here is a favor for you I'm doing in the future. It's still a favor. It's still a favor, and Mama said that when someone does a favor, you have to return it if you ever get the chance. Otherwise, you're a jerk, and you don't want to be a jerk. So he had to return the favor, because I did one for him based on these rules. That's why these are rules. This is a system that you can intentionally and deliberately use. Next principle is the principle of scarcity. If something is rare, the perceived value increases. Remember when gas was so high? Oh my gosh. And then what happened to the lines? Everybody's going to go line up to buy expensive gasoline because it's rare. I remember my son's very first trip on an airplane. He was maybe about 6 months old. Going to go see some family. We had to fly from Asheville to Charlotte, then Charlotte to Dallas is where we were going. And I remember when, as soon as we left from Asheville, my boy goes to the bathroom, and it wasn't number 1. He goes number 2. So we look in the diaper bag, and I'm looking in the diaper bag, and I said to his mom, I said, there's no diapers here. And she said, well, I asked you if you packed the diaper bag, and you told me you did. I said, well, yeah, I thought you meant, did I pack it in the truck? Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought you meant that. When you said, did I pack it, I thought, sure, it's in the truck. It's packed. We're good to go. No diapers. Comfort Silky to the rescue. We went to Charlotte Airport to change planes. We had some time. In the airport shops, they sell diapers in quantities of 1. And the diaper cost $7 for 1 diaper. You know what? I would have paid $70. I would have paid $70 for that diaper because my need was great. When your clients have a great need, your perceived value increases. That's why the successful people in our business understand Socratic selling, question asking, probing, and finding out where those issues are and the implications of those issues if they're not resolved, and how those implications will affect the prospective client on a personal and an emotional level, and will articulate the resolution and the amelioration of that through your service. That's what it's all about. That's why the depth of this business, if you think it's all about just make another call, you don't understand it, folks. You got to read every day in sales books. You really have to. You want to stay on the edge. Saddest thing in the world is for me to hear from a recruiter, I know everything. I remember there was a guy, 25 years old, been in the business about 2 years, and I'm talking about, okay, tell me some of the sales books you've read. Scott, listen, I've read all the sales books. I'm like, come on, man, I teach this stuff, and I haven't read them all. When you understand that you need to increase the depth of knowledge in this business, which is sales, that's where you find how magical it can really be. You can take something that is just a job opportunity, but because you understand the principle of scarcity, and you can tell candidates, listen, there's 3 opportunities I have. I don't see something like this very often, and this is why. You can use that principle as a tool to gain compliance. It's all about gaining compliance. What can we do to increase the probabilities of compliance? Social proof. People make decisions based on decisions that other people have already made. In our society, we need to feel accepted. We need to feel like we're part of something. And so because of that, to feel a part of something, we're going to accept what other people have done. Now, my fiance and I, I'm Episcopalian, she's Pentecostal. Go figure. That's a lot. That's a pretty big difference. So we found a church that kind of works for both of us. We go to my church, some we go to hers. And anyways, at this one church that she went to, it's one of these huge mega churches. They just built on these risers. So we're sitting in the bottom of the risers. It's like 20 rows that kind of go up like a stadium. And as the pastor, who's this amazing speaker, he's giving a sermon, he's talking. I'm hearing this lady probably about like 5 rows behind me mumbling through the whole thing. And so I turn around at her, and I was trying to be very, I don't know how you do this in a pleasant way, but I put my finger over my lips and I go, shh. And she continues to mumble. And I look at my fiance and I said, can you believe the nerve of that lady? And she looked back and she says, she's translating the sermon in another language for the person sitting next to her. Oh my gosh! I haven't been back since. We all have a need to belong to something. By the way, get the facts before you make a decision. That's the lesson there. Get the facts. You know how it is. Anyways, social proof. I used to tell candidates how great the opportunity was. But you know what? I'm a recruiter. I have an agenda. So, Scott, you're telling me this is a great opportunity? Yes, it is. And if I join your client, what happens to you? I get a pretty big fat fee, worth the size of a used Lexus. And it's a great opportunity. Okay, I have an agenda. That's why the candidates look at that. From now on, from this point forward, no longer will you ever, swear to me, don't tell anyone your opinion about anything anymore because it doesn't count. The only thing that counts is what are the facts. Your opinion is worthless to candidates and clients. I've got a great opportunity with a great job. It's just a great place to work. Yeah, come on. You're a recruiter. You have an agenda. Of course you think it's great. So what do? Talk to candidates that you have placed there. So anytime I make a placement, I call candidates after they've been there for a couple of weeks, say, listen, I'm doing another search for your client, or for your employer, my client. Doing another search. tell me, if I talk to someone who's on the fence, what are 3 reasons that they should come over and interview? And they'll give you 3 really good reasons. If you tell them, why should someone come to work there, they won't be able to think of anything. When you say, tell me 3 reasons why. I did this in a client visit I had last week, where I said, what are 3 reasons why? Tell me 3 success stories of people that have come here from another firm and how it's grown their practice. If it's a real story, then it's no longer your opinion. So, and then if you have a candidate that says, listen, I don't think I'm interested. You know what? It's funny you should say that. That's the exact same thing that someone who I placed there told me the first time I talked with them. But they wanted an interview, and this is what they found out, and they made a move, and this is what's going on over there. Really? Absolutely. But then get the candidates to agree to a call, even before you present them to the client, if that's what it takes. You know, if it's a really good candidate, they can do a favor for you. Social proof. References are the same way. This is what the reference said about this candidate. Let me go to the next one, and we're almost done. And this is not one of those webinars where we have time for Q&A. It's a 30-minute webinar. And again, folks, I'm really sorry that it took me a while. I spent probably about 20 minutes trying to get my machine to log on, and then I called the guys at PC Recruiter, and they said, just reboot. And I'm like, oh, there it is, and it works. So, by the way, I use PC Recruiter every day. I've used about four different programs. I found this one has the best use, in my own opinion. I think it's the best one. How I got turned on to them was that so many of my clients, when I go train in offices, they had them. And the feedback I got from those guys was good, so I called them up, and I'm a user. Principle of liking. If people like you, they're going to do business with you. But here's the catch with this. When you're selling to a high-level prospect, there's this criteria of decision-making that they go through in their mind before they allow people to come into their space. And the higher you go up the food chain, sometimes the longer it takes to get to that point. But then once you do, you're in there forever. The first thing they're looking at is, can you provide me value? The second thing is, can I trust you? And the third thing is, do I like you? Most recruiters start with number 3. Liking is important for lasting relationships, but in developing them, it's not as important as a lot of salespeople think. I remember writing an article called Relationship Selling Doesn't Work. People would email, what do you mean it doesn't work? Well, read the article. And the point was that your client doesn't need another friend. They want value. Once you can show the potential for value, and through the Socratic sales method of asking questions to determine what the implication is and how it affects them negatively on a personal and an emotional level, and you tie the context of your unique selling proposition and how to solve that problem, all that stuff, and you've earned the right to show them value, you've earned the right to build a relationship. You have to earn the right to get to that point. But once you're there, cats and dogs living in harmony. It's beautiful. Beautiful thing. Last one is authority. I always do this. When I come to speak, and I'm not doing a lot anymore, it takes a lot to get me out of the house and off my desk nowadays. So you're probably not going to see me at a lot of conferences anymore. All my stuff is online. I've got free resources. I'll show you. I've got tons of free stuff. You could spend hours on my website without spending a dime. But when I'd go to speak at places, I'd tell people, stand up. Everybody stand up. Stand on one foot. Put your hand on your head, pat your belly, turn around. Why are you doing that? Well, you told us to. Well, who am I? Authority. Just because you're a recruiter, you have authority. And you need to learn to talk to people. You're not talking down to them. There's verbiage that you can use, such as, let me make a suggestion. You talk to them. They have a concern about something. You want to move it forward. Let me make a suggestion. You want to talk to people. You want to move things forward. You are taking a leadership role. People don't like to be pushed. They don't like to be manipulated. But they're okay with being led by someone who's worthy of being a leader. The issue is not about candidate control and client control. And from this point on, anytime you see that phrase, candidate control, anywhere, printed, anywhere, I want you to dismiss it as false teaching. Well, that sounds kind of weird, false teaching. I want you to consider it as, it's just a weak argument for moving people forward. It's about leadership, folks. It's about candidate leadership and client leadership. about you making decisions with which people will agree that are in their best interest and that serve them and move them forward to a place that benefits them and you, but them first. That's what authority is all about. And you can use those 6 principles. I'm going to rattle them off again. If you didn't get them, you can write them down. Contrast. And let me go back through those again. Hold on a second. Let me go back through those so you can write them down. Contrast, reciprocity, scarcity, social proof, liking, and authority. Those are the 6. Those are the tools in your tool belt. If you have someone that's not moving forward, let's say you've got a situation and you can't move that candidate forward, right? I like to write the first 4 down: contrast, scarcity, reciprocity, and social proof. I write them down on a sheet of paper and I ask myself, how can I use the contrast principle to move this candidate forward? How can I use the scarcity principle to move this candidate forward? Same thing with social proof and with reciprocity. Now, let me give you some ideas on using these principles. Number 1, commit these to memory. I mean, memorize this. You have to really understand this and learn it. Consider this the multiplication tables of recruiting. You got to learn it. You can't get around it. Review this in the office. Next time you have your sales meeting or your weekly meeting in your office, go over these. That'll be the topic for your next training. Go over those and say, give me examples of how we can use these on our desk. Managers don't just tell your folks this. Have your people go over those one by one and let them lead the training. Number 3, each week state how you use them. And notice how when you use a principle, remember it for the future because you're going to see patterns on your desk. Situations, and this is one of the things I've done when I've consulted and coached folks. I've probably consulted and coached hundreds of people in some way or another. I've seen a lot of scenarios. And the reason I say that is just because there's these trends that I see. I look for these patterns in these situations. And that's how you can start being able to solve some of your problems. As you review situations, as they come up in your office, when you're talking about your deals, ask your team which principles would work. Remember, this is like wax on, wax off for recruiting. And use the first 4, like I mentioned. And if you have a journal, that's a good place to solve a lot of your problems. Just write them down. How can I use the contrast, reciprocity, social proof, and the other one, I can't remember, scarcity. How can I use those to solve the problem of Jimmy the candidate not going forward with my client? And there's my website, Great Recruiter Training. Check it out, folks. I've got tons of free stuff. I've got free videos. You can go download my podcasts. I've got lots of free articles and all sorts of free stuff on there. I appreciate your time. Again, I apologize for being late on this. Thanks for hanging in there with me, folks. We'll talk with you guys later on. Have a great day.